take 2. Part 2.
Okay, so.
What we were
we're
saying. So you have the possibility of filing an equal employment opportunity suit.
Mhm.
Now, your case isn't super strong because they did offer you compromises that you're willing to take. A lot of times, big companies like this will offer some kind of settlement just to make it go away. They don't want to pay lawyers to do trials and all that. But given that your parents are threatening to cut you off, and that
Yeah, I want to preserve my inheritance, but I don't want
Yeah.
to look like a fool walking away either.
Yeah. So, given that they're threatening to cut you off, and that you think that a lawsuit would likely push them further into cutting you off, you have to kind of weigh. I mean, I don't know how much your inheritance is or how much the trust is. That might be worth a lot more than a lawsuit would be to you.
Okay.
So,
Did you bring any of the documentation in?
Oh yeah, I got the documentation on the church and the testimonials they were asking about what their I believe you asked
The
me
dress
how they
code.
handled it legally.
What about the dress
church.
code?
And that dress code as well. Yeah.
Okay, so let's decide. Have you decided what you want to do? I mean, I know you have these concerns regarding your parents and everything. Do you need more time to think about this, or have you thought about it? And I'm trying to get an idea as to where you're thinking you want to go. What do you want this meeting today to conclude with? How do you want us to proceed?
I don't know, my emotions are kind of really running high right now, just because of these recent events.
Right.
Get this
Well-
trust that might be revoked that I'm
Yeah.
supposed to get when I'm 30, and
how much is the trust for? Do you know?
I'm sure it's. I'm not sure, but it's a substantial amount.
How old are you?
So I'm 28 right now,
Okay.
and they're talking about, I'm supposed to get this when I'm 30, and they're talking
Yeah.
about revoking it.
And your parents are pretty well off. You think that it's probably a pretty substantial trust?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. Based on that, I would probably prioritize your trust over a lawsuit because since you have been given compromises that you're willing to take and you're willing to go back to work with plastic studs or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it going very far. I don't see it going to trial. Like I said, they might offer you a settlement just to make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing the value of the trust is a lot higher than anything that you would get out of a settlement. And the value of keeping your job is pretty high as well because jobs, it's long-term income, any benefits that they give you and things like that.
Is there any way I can return to work with the piercings, or you think that's not an option, or this is the compromise that they made? And
I mean, we can contact them again to see if there's any wiggle room. That since they've already offered one compromise, there's likely some wiggle room. You might be able to leave some piercings in if
Mhm.
you're willing to take the others out or something like that.
Okay. 'Cause, I feel like they shouldn't have to dictate how I have to look.
I think that in our legal opinion, I think that I agree with everything Stacy was saying. You're gonna have to prioritize this. That's a personal decision you have to make. And legally speaking, with them being a private organization and the case law, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it weighed in favor of the employer, didn't it?
Yeah.
With the case law weighing in favor of the employer, they almost can tell you what you can and can't wear to work.
The strength is that for them is that they have their reputation to uphold, and they as a company are allowed to dictate how they want to be seen, and you're the face of the company when you're interacting with customers. So they're kind of allowed to say how they want their employees to look and things like that.
Even though there's nothing specific in their dress code about.
Well, that is a strong point for you
Right.
going forward, and that's probably why they might be willing to offer a settlement. My concern with that, again, is that if you push forward, you might lose your trust, which might be a lot more than a settlement would be worth to you.
I see. So I should find out how much is in the trust.
Probably. That would probably be a good idea. There's a chance of getting a settlement, but I don't see it as being, it's not something that you'll be able to live off of. You might get a little bit of money, you might be able to put your devil horns in or something like that. But it wouldn't set you up for life or anything like that.
Okay.
Whereas a trust is usually set up for living off of or more long term. If I were you, I would be prioritizing the trust myself. But
Okay.
that's up to you. It's your decision to make, and if it's more important to you to fight it and walk away with something on moral grounds, then we can do that for you. We can file the complaint and see what happens, but just know that whatever's going on with your parents, it might exacerbate that.
So it sounds like the best thing for me to do to preserve my inheritance, and they might be willing to compromise for what studs I can put in or something.
Well, I think that they've laid out, like we talked about this a lot in our last meeting. They've laid out their offer.
Mm-hmm.
You can counter that offer or accept or decline that offer.
Mm-hmm.
So their offer was bandages or clear studs. As far I don't have any information regarding whether they've changed that offer or anything like that. So as it stands, that their offer is clear studs and or bandages.
I see.
For
But
you to
you're
go back to
certainly
work.
willing to. You're certainly able to counter that
Right.
if there's
Mhm.
something that you would rather have. The fact that they've offered a compromise shows that they have some wiggle room.
Okay.
They might not go any further than that. That might be the end of the door, but you can always try.
I see.
So what do you think? What are you feeling you want to do? How do you want to proceed?
I'm feeling like just counter on the subject of the piercings to see if they have any wiggle room
Okay, and how many days? We have 3 days, right?
to the trial. Or
3 days
3 days
until you're
until-
terminated.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm.
There's also something that we need to consider. If we counter, we can counter. Before we get into what your counter may be, we might want to consider the fact that if you decide to go through with this, with the lawsuit, then you're basically going all the way with it, because in 3 days you no longer have a job to go back to.
I understand.
So then you're placing everything on the lawsuit. You know what I'm saying?
I see. Yeah.
So it's a time sensitive situation at this point,
Okay.
because if we wait, you could lose everything.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like let's say we move forward, just so you have an idea. Option A, you put in the studs, the clear studs or band-aids, go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Your inheritance stays here. Option B, you move forward with the lawsuit, you lose your job, you lose your inheritance, and you're just waiting on what happens with the lawsuit, which could take 2 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like Stacy was saying, it might not be much.
What about
So-
option 3, like counter?
We can counter, but I don't have any facts that tell us how that would go, so I can't even advise you on that. They could either decline it.
They could withdraw
or-
the original offer if we counter.
Well, if you counter, you're essentially declining their original offer. So if you counter that, then their original offer is declined by you. So what could happen
Okay.
if you counter is they could accept it,
Mm-hmm.
they could decline it,
And
and
stick to the original, or
they could decline it and reinstate their original offer, or
Uh-huh.
just entirely decline it and move forward, which
I
means
see.
that you're going to be terminated.
I see.
The phone call that we got from when we contacted your boss, she said that you're a really good employee. If you are willing to go back to work with some sort of compromise, I don't see them. If you counter, I don't see them dropping it completely
Uh-huh.
and just firing you for it. I see them
Okay.
either saying no, that's it, or countering again.
Okay.
I don't think that you'll get too much below what they've already put on the table.
Okay.
The chance is always there, but I see it as pretty slim. So,
Okay.
since you have 3 days until you are terminated or you need to return back to work, what I would do is go back to work. Either cover them with the bandages or put the plastic in for now, and then that will give us more time. You'll still have your job. We can talk to your boss and see if there's any more wiggle room in there if she's willing to let you have some of the piercings in or whatever you want to counter there, but then at least you won't be fired for it. You'll still have your job. You'll still be
Yeah, that's a
going.
fantastic point. I think Stacey's absolutely right. You can just essentially put this whole thing on pause. If you appease them with the plastic studs or band-aids, go back to work. It eliminates our time crunch of the 3-day window. The only problem is you're not gonna look like a fool. I don't think. I think that you're gonna look like the adult in the situation. But I can understand your concerns. So if you do that, then it essentially puts it basically gives us a lot more time for you to decide what you want to do. It gives us time to make an offer and see what they come back with. Because you go back to work with putting the studs in is not necessary. That does not eliminate your right to sue them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it could be argued that the using their method offered is a silent exception of their offer, but that's just another argument that we'll have to deal with when it comes to that time.
Yeah, we'll try and touch base before you go into work and let them know that we'd still like to find a better middle ground for you, something that works better for you. But by going in, you at least show that you're there and willing to work on it with them, and it's you don't lose your job. And I mean, you can always, if you decide to pursue it later, you can always go back to wearing the piercings and have them terminate you later. It doesn't really affect any of your stuff. It doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? The timing of it doesn't matter if
Right.
you
So I
if you do it
think
2 weeks from now or 3 days from now.
if we draft a letter stating that we're not accepting your offer and we're not waiving any rights to file suit on this action by your going to work with the let's just pick one, Band-Aids or clear studs.
The clear studs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we draft a letter saying that we're not accepting this performance is not an acceptance of your offer, and we are not waiving any right to sue whatsoever by you wearing the clear studs and going back to work. I think that'll preserve your rights, and everything will be status quo until you decide what you want to do moving forward. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I don't know if I want to drag it out. Like, if
Well,
we have
what-
this position where we can counter within these 3 days.
Well, I think we can still
Yeah.
counter if
Yeah.
we do this letter and you go back to work with the clear studs. We can still counter in the meantime because
Okay.
the letter is saying that we're not accepting. So we'll
Yeah.
do the letter and we can simultaneously have another letter with a counter offer.
Yeah,
But in
we
the meantime-
absolutely can counter. We're just letting you know if it takes longer than 3 days to get settled, you should probably go into work at the end of the 3 days.
Oh,
so
I
you
see
don't
what
get
you're saying.
fired.
Okay.
But we absolutely can
Yeah.
counter in the meantime.
Or
just
we can
in
request
case
an
it takes
extension
longer.
of that. I mean, either way.
Okay.
Yep. So what
Yeah.
what is your middle ground that you think that you would like?
Well,
What
now
is
you
that
explained
that
it
you
like
like?
that, I think I understand better of the sense of going back to work in case the the settlement
Right.
takes longer.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning toward just going back to work, and as long as it doesn't waive my right, and
Okay. So would you?
I can, just have some kind of, I don't know, be able to display something else at work besides clear studs that they wanted, like, it's just
Yeah.
like, they got what they wanted, but I didn't,
Yeah.
so.
Which is understandable. You want to feel like you got something out of it as
Uh-huh.
well. So what would be your desired outcome? What would you like to counter with?
I don't know, like if they allow hoops or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah,
like the small studs
like
instead of the
certain,
big ones or something like that?
Like, terribly like high gauge or anything like that, but
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I know they have kind of placeholder studs that are just like the little round ones that are not like, spikes or anything too noticeable. It's just the small
Mhm.
things like that.
Well,
So-
what if? I mean, it's going to take you. How long would it take you to change all of your piercings every day to prepare to go to work? Is that anything in your facts to consider? Because So wouldn't that take like an hour? I mean, how many? You have a ton of piercings, right? What hour?
Yep,
I don't know. I don't have
right.
earrings. I don't know, but wouldn't it take
Yeah.
a while to do that? So maybe on your counter, you say, you know, the first 20 minutes of your work day is for swapping your piercings at work, or something. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
I
coming
don't
late.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really familiar with all of that
Mm-hmm.
piercing stuff, so I'm not sure how long it takes. But, or you could also, like we had discussed before, offer to take out the more visible ones, like your cheeks, right?
Right.
So you could offer to take those out, but leave like the ears or the tongue, which are not really noticeable when you're, or well, the ears are noticeable, but they're not really uncommon. The tongue isn't very noticeable even when you're talking to people,
Mhm.
unless they're really looking, they won't be able to see very much.
Right.
So you could offer to do that, or you could offer to use smaller studs or something like that. It really just depends on what you feel like would be a win for you going into work.
Okay. Yeah, as far as
So what's your offer? What do you want to throw at them?
so, I'll go ahead and put the studs in and go back to work. And I don't know, just